Hey everyone, I think I'm live. Hopefully this works. I'm testing out my new mic system and I want to get like an actual stand, but for now, I'll just kind of hold it like this because yeah. So I was feeling really energetic this morning and I just wanted to pop in here and do a live because I went to go see the film Judy yesterday. It starred Janelle Monet. Where that's coming from. Renee Zellweger. Phenomenal. It was a phenomenal film. I wasn't that familiar with the story of Judy Garland, and that was where the storyline was based off of Judy Garland. If you don't know, she was the star. She starred in The Wizard of Oz. She played Dorothy, and it was just such a gosh, like I don't even know where to really begin because there's just so much nuance and there's so many layerings to her character, her story, like what she went through. But it kind of made me think about a lot of like what's going on in the world today with, a lot of the women empowerment movements we're seeing, even with the Me Too and the Time's Up movement. Um, yeah, so we'll just unpack all that. So I just kind of wanted to have like a space where I could just like share my thoughts about it, and just talk about more things about stories and film because that's like, one of the capacities that totally enamored with. And it's just like been such a pull and draw in my spirit since I've been a little girl. And so it just makes sense for me to like to start reviewing films that I love. So Judy, again, as I was saying, let me get my coffee. I have my little coffee here, little hedgehog mug. And so Judy, it starts off with telling the story of when she first began with her film career. Back when she first signed with MGM Studios and when she was I don't think she had yet began filming The Wizard of Oz, but it kind of took you on the journey of just what it's like to be a young starlet with a major film production and major film distribution company, and the powerhouse that MGM is, even until this day. They're a major powerhouse within the film industry. And so, um, it was kind of a little sad because it was like, you could see how like power really can be abused, and especially when you're young and you don't know any better and you don't have anyone like in your corner to really be your advocate and to be your, just facilitating your success and to ensure that you're going to be protected and safe and looked after in the future. And so it started off with, like, the initial seeds of, like, self-worth or for lack thereof that were implanted in her since essentially since the inception of her career, and it was at the hands of, the major player again, like the head of the studio at MGM. I don't recall the name. I did do some research when I was Googling, but I don't remember the exact name, and I don't wanna butcher anyone's name, so I won't, go into that. It's public information. We can all Google and find out who the names of the prominent figures of the MGM brand is, obviously. But aside from that, the point is about when you're young and impressionable, and especially when you're a young woman, it's not easy navigating through a lot of that, right? And so I feel like it set the tone because then it kind of was you could understand the behavior and the things that she was going through throughout the duration of the story throughout her life. And so it started off with that. At first I was a little bit confused because again, I wasn't that familiar with her history or the story. But it made sense later. So it pretty much took you on the path of like the downward spiral, if you will, from things that just happened in her childhood. So, being on a film set, being a star, being a celebrity, being thrust into the spotlight, not having people who genuinely cared about her around her, and her trying to navigate through feelings of just being a normal person and being a human being at the same time being in the spotlight. And The Wizard of Oz being such an iconic and just classic film and staple, I feel like within most childhoods growing up. I mean, they just did a remake of it. They're constantly doing remakes of it, Broadway and, different facets that they repackage the story, they remix it and re-release it. It's just one of those like staples like in your childhood mind, if you will, when you think about the horrific treatment that she received behind the scenes. I think it peeled back the layer of we have to understand, you know, we're just humans, right? Like everyone's a human being. Like even if you're a celebrity, I don't, if you have like X amount of followers on Instagram or Facebook, if you have a massive following on YouTube, a platform like this, at the core of it, we are all still humans. And so it started off where, they fast forward it till today or when she was in her 40s, they cut away from the childhood stuff and they kind of just went back and forth between the past and how it correlated and related to the future and the present moment. That was a causation of her behavior that she was exhibiting right now in the present was in the film. And so she was now at this point in her 40s and she had two of her younger children with her, and she had them on tour with her, and she was they're about to go on stage to perform, and the gentleman came out and handed her like $150 just for the show and was like apologetic and said, "I know this isn't what you're accustomed to, but this is all we can afford to pay you." And then they proceeded to go on stage. Now, afterwards, they're headed back, to their home. They didn't say where they were. No, actually, they were in Los Angeles. They didn't say it at first, but you found it out later. They ended up going to the hotel, and you can kind of tell that, obviously financially she wasn't doing well. And so that right there stuck out to me because it goes back into like people, especially like, well, I guess when no matter what industry you're in, but especially in entertainment, you owning, the rights to your creative work and having, well, at the time, obviously she didn't, she was a kid, but having the wherewithal of having, an advocate in your corner, ensuring that you're gonna be taken care of in the future, because I'm sure, like, her family probably doesn't receive any of the royalties from The Wizard of Oz because those deals she probably just, like I said, didn't have someone who was there making sure that she's gonna be okay for the future. So, this was years later, but here she was homeless, broke, had 2 children, and they didn't have a place to stay. So that kinda stuck out to me where it's like, when you are creative, you have to be just as savvy and as business minded as the next person who's just quote unquote a business owner or an entrepreneur. And maybe they're not creative per se, but they have a lot of business acumen about them. They're very business savvy. And you have to be just as savvy and just as your own advocate in a sense, because that's literally what could happen to anyone. I think we kind of get lost in the romanticization, if that's like a word. We get lost in the romance of art and creativity. And, you think about any facet of creativity, right? So, music, film, paintings, sculptures, all of that is someone else's creative work, and that's part of like their human spirit, you got if you will, because it was like, their gift to the world. And it's disheartening that a lot of artists have really been, kind of screwed over in a sense, like they were taken advantage of and kind of pushed and signed, unfair deals. We hear a lot about like the whole 360 era when a lot of recording artists were kind of getting, the short end of the stick. Kind of made me think about like the story of TLC and stuff like that, where a lot of artists were just like flat out taken advantage of, or they just didn't know any better, or they didn't have somebody who could negotiate, on their behalf that really cared about them. So all that was kind of coming up in my mind as I was watching the scenes of her struggling financially, not even being able to take care of her 2 children. And so she ended up having to leave them with their father, and it broke her heart. She didn't wanna do that, but she literally just didn't have a choice. She was like, "I don't have the money to care for them properly, and I can't put them through hardship because it's not fair to them." So, she ended up having to make a choice. She got an opportunity to go tour in London. Um, I I believe it was like a wealthy businessman, and he also owned a theater, and so they loved Judy Garland over there, and so they offered her a tour, kinda similar to how artists go to Vegas and do, like, those long tours, but it was in London. So she went over there. Again, she had to make the decision to leave her children because, her husband or her ex-husband, he had filed against her for custody, and so the courts were not gonna allow her to take the children even though she would have had a place to stay because they were covering her accommodations and her living expenses as well as paying her, but she wasn't able to take her kids with her. She had to leave them. And I mean, it was kind of like, gosh, can you imagine what that would be like as a mom to have to not only can have I been degraded and I've been like taken advantage of, or someone's like this major studio took advantage of me. I'm in this major iconic film, but here I am penniless and without a roof over my head, not able to care for my young children. And now I have to make the decision of I have to go leave and work and make money and leave them, or stay here and try to figure it out and fight wealthier people than me who have access to resources I don't have. And it was just very humanizing because a lot of sacrifice goes in behind the scenes that a lot of us don't really understand and realize. But again, it goes back to knowing your value, knowing your worth, and having, an understanding of that and having a good solid team around you and having someone who's in your corner, assisting you to facilitate better terms that work in your favor. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's the thing that kept coming up. I felt like it was like about the artist and like the artistry and her not having that protection. And I'm thinking about that as like I'm watching the film because me myself as a creative, and as a producer and a writer, there's a lot of this type of conversation in the air. Even recently, I really, really admire Alex Wolf a lot. She recently put on a in-person workshop in Brooklyn, New York, and it was titled Creative Wealth, and it was all about teaching creatives how to understand, like, you are creative, but you are also a business, and you need to protect yourself and your assets, and you have to not only know your worth, but not be afraid to command that, and also not be afraid to negotiate that and leverage that, because without the creativity, the business part kinda doesn't really exist because there's nothing of value to exchange, right? There's nothing there that can be disseminated. There's nothing there that can actually be produced and brought to life that other people can monetize and that so that the audience can experience it. So, it's like almost as if like without the creative work, there's nothing there. There would be no substance. There would be nothing that would even draw in an audience. And so, I feel like that was a big part of it too, where, she just didn't recognize her worth, and so she was just being drug along with whoever offered her something. Not to say that it wasn't a bad deal that she got the offer to go to London, but again, it was difficult for her because she knew she had to leave her children, and she didn't really want to because she didn't have anyone in America, offering her something to where she could have stayed in America, and then she could have, like, worked and kind of, like, at least been in her children's lives a little bit more. And then, of course, too, the father wasn't really helpful. He wasn't trying to make things better, by trying to work things out in terms of, making, the situation easier for her to be in their life, in their lives. So that was, another tragedy in and of itself. So she leaves, goes to London, and you could tell she was, really broken and really hurt over it. Um, and they were pretty apprehensive, because she had a reputation about her, right? Being very difficult and being a diva, I guess, if you will, the drugs and the drinking and everything. But as they went about the story, I mean, you can read about it too. She actually was given drugs when she was younger, because for one, she was tired a lot because of the long hours, working 18 hours a day, and plus not being able to take lunch breaks, not really being able to take care of yourself at all. She was really just kind of like a slave worker on these, big Hollywood sets, and no compassion at all whatsoever. The people, actually, there was an older woman who I guess was like looking after her, and she had completely no compassion at all. It was just like, "You're a robot. You gotta get up, be here at 5 o'clock, and that's it, and I don't care how you feel." Um, and so she was actually given drugs. One of them was to assist her with remaining awake because she was tired. So they were like, "Well, we can't have you tired, so take these pills." And it was all prescription by an actual physician. And then the second thing was she was given amphetamines to assist her with her weight and to decrease her appetite because they didn't want her gaining weight. So she had to take those as well to cut her appetite because she wanted to be able to eat, be a normal kid. And there was a scene that she was actually out during like a little lunch. it was like a scene within a film. I forget the other actor's name, but it was like another young gentleman too. They were at the same age and they were playing, like characters in a film, and they had french fries and hamburgers that they were, pretending to eat during their date. He was allowed to eat the food like in real life because even though it was a film, he was allowed to eat the food, but she wasn't. They only allowed her to eat one french fry. They wouldn't allow her to even eat one bite of the hamburger. And at one point, the older woman who was like her caregiver, I guess if you will, or she was the person looking after her, Judy had said, "Well, I'm really hungry. Can I eat something?" And the older woman handed her 2 pills. She's like, "Well, this will take care of that." And so, that started like the downward spiral of her drug addiction. And so it wasn't as if she was, as an adult now, acting erratic and being addicted to drugs. She was actually given drugs and drugged as a child, by the studio, by an actual licensed physician that was, in cahoots with keeping her in line. And so, um, that was that. And then also she had to be, given sleeping pills because, the between like the meth or the amphetamine type derivative of those pills, and then the other pills they gave her to keep her energized. I don't know what the name of those were, but they had to counteract that, right? Because then she's up 24 hours a day and she can't sleep, so then she had to be given sleeping pills. So all of that was just a cascade of why, as an adult now, she can't function because her whole life, as a child has just been, manufactured. She's just been given drugs and she literally could not make a decision, and she had no freedom and no liberty and no right to even speak up and just be a human and be valued. Um so there was that component. So she gets to London and all of that's into play. So they were a little apprehensive, obviously, because of the drug habits and the drinking and everything. But again, it tied back to the history of her childhood of why she was addicted to drugs. And so, they kind of felt it out. It worked out eventually. She did start performing and everything was kind of seemingly to be okay. Um, then a gentleman arrives, unannounced. She actually had met him earlier in the film at a party she went to the same night. She ended up having to leave her children with their father. So she went out to a party that night, in Los Angeles, in Brentwood, I believe, somewhere. And she ended up staying with a friend. And that's when the opportunity for her to go to London happened. So that same gentleman popped up in London unannounced. Um, and they had kind of, like, hinted at they had some sort of, like, a romantic interest in each other, and so that relationship kinda took off from there. It didn't work out because, again, it really wasn't rooted in anything that would have been, beneficial. I mean, in terms of, like, him really caring for her. He did attempt to assist to facilitate and negotiate a major deal in America that could have enabled her to come back to the United States and pay off for her debts and be in her children's lives, and he did care for that, but he didn't wanna stick around, like, beyond that, essentially. So, I mean, the film, it didn't really go into too much beyond that. It was kind of like a linear, story arc in the sense of it. I mean, in terms of, like, the placement. So it took place primarily around her entire, London show. So that's actually where she ended up dying, and as she stayed over there, she never returned to the US, but, it was just showing the arc of, like, the spirals and the ups and downs and the peaks and valleys of what she was going through as she was touring over there in London. And, at one point, her ex-husband, the father of her children, did come to visit and was like, "We gotta talk about this. Let's get the lawyers and stuff, out of the way. Let's stop wasting money on that, and let's just come to terms that the kids just wanna stay with me. They're better with me. They're more stable here, and they just need to have, like, a normal life that you can't provide them." And of course, Judy fought back, and she was like, "No, I don't wanna do that." Um so, that scene didn't end well. She ended up storming out. But it all kind of came full circle a little bit later on in the film when she was out late one evening and she went into a phone booth. in London, and it was late at night, and so she just so happened to just, call the house, and her daughter Lorna answered the phone, and, it was just really heartbreaking because Judy had really kind of it was like she had accepted, the way things were happening, and she didn't want it to be that way, but it just proved that, how much of a good person and a good mother she really was, even though on the outside, everyone was, like, telling her that she wasn't a good mother. Even the father of her children, the scene prior to when he had came to visit her and was like, "Look, the kids wanna stay with me, they don't wanna stay with you. They need stability, they need to be able to be in school," and all that stuff. Um, she was like, "But you know I'm a good mother." And he was just like, "Well, I know that you try." And it was kind of like the running theme of, like, everyone basically turning their back against her and not really valuing her as a person, as a human being. Um, and so she's in the phone booth, and she's talking to her daughter Lorna, and, oh my goodness, it was just really heartbreaking because she literally was just, like, holding on to just a little bit of what she could, and her children were just such a joy in her life, and she wanted to be with them so desperately. And the only reason she was in London because just so she could make enough money to pay off her debts and return, to the States and purchase a home so she could be there for them full time how she wanted to be. And, but at the same time, she had, the intellect, and she was so witty. She was so intelligent. She was so funny just throughout the film, just like her interactions, with the other people and the other characters in the film and people in her life. Um, and so she was talking to her daughter, and the way she positioned it was more so from a, "I'm here and I love you and I care about you, and I'm not trying to be like an authoritative figure and like be like mom and like I know everything and I'm gonna tell you what to do." It really was like the way she said it was like, "Well, and if you feel that, you would rather, stay there and, be with your friends and in school, it's okay to say that." She didn't like do like the typical thing where, a lot of parents kind of, try to like pull their trump card, if you will, like they're trying to run things. She really wanted, to create in the space for her daughter Lorna to tell her how she truly felt. And if she really wanted to stay with her dad and she was happy there, that she's okay with that. Um, and her daughter Lorna did say, "Yeah, that's what I want." At the same time, you could kinda see that it really wasn't what she wanted. She really wanted to be her mom, but she knew at the same time, it wasn't possible because she did say, "Well, it is nice to not have to move around so much." But it didn't mean that she didn't wanna be with her. It was just she wished that her mom could have been here. And it was one of those pivotal moments in the film where you can kinda see at that point, it was, like, kinda like the midpoint where Judy had kinda, like, lost all hope, at that point, it was like, "Well, if I lose my kids, that's it." I came over here for them, and I'm even tearing up now over it because it's powerful to see someone care about someone so much and not be able to be there for them and, how you wanna be. And there was actually a scene in the earlier part where when she first arrived to London, she had asked a young woman who was kind of like looking after her, who was like the person responsible for her to make sure she was on time for all the shows. She had asked her if she was a mother, and the young woman said she wasn't. And her mom was like, "Oh, don't worry." Or I'm sorry, Judy said, don't have children, because it's like living with your heart on the outside of you. And yeah, that was, kind of like tying in, like, the completion of that inward storyline of what Judy really felt, and, it also tied into a part where she was interviewed on a London television program, and, the interviewer was kinda, like, poking little jabs at her, how people can be when they think they have you numbered or they think they know who you are. And, she was like, "Well, I'm Judy Garland for an hour every night, while I'm on stage, but I'm still a human being, I'm still a person the rest of the day, the remaining 23 hours in the day, I'm a human, I'm a person, I'm just like you, and I want what you want." And, I really love the fact that they humanized her because, again, I feel like a lot of us get caught up in the celebrity factor of people, and we may look at someone like a Beyonce or Rihanna, whoever you look up to it, and Angelina Jolie, whomever, um, and they're just people. I think we forget that, and so that was probably the biggest takeaway from for me personally. I don't wanna go into too much detail, I don't wanna ruin it, I kind of spoiled a lot of the film, but it was such a great film, I don't really think I could spoil it because you're gonna take away what you feel you need to take away from it, and I felt like I just had to hear those those notes just, like, resonated with me that were touched on throughout the film. So, the first part was, like, the creativity and protecting yourself and your assets and understanding your value and your worth, and if you don't have someone to advocate for you, then to not be afraid to advocate for yourself. The second part was the fact that she was a human, she was just like us, and it was just tragic how her life had to end, the way that it did, and it was unfortunate. And she was so young, she was only 47 when she died, and you think about, like, gosh, like, what a tremendous talent, she had a beautiful voice, she was so gifted, she was so beautiful, she was so full of life, but it was, like, sucked out of her all for profit, and so, and it didn't benefit her, I'm not saying she wouldn't have regretted or wouldn't have mind to have worked so hard and to have been offered those opportunities that she had, but it didn't benefit her, and it didn't benefit her children, and it probably didn't benefit her legacy really either because she didn't, have the financial wherewithal, the means to be able to support herself years after. So those are the 2 main things that I took away from it, and so I just wanted to share because I don't know, it really stuck out to me, and so if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, it's titled Judy. It was a really great film, and it was, I know I got a lot from it. I cried a few moments in there, of course, even now I was kind of tearing up when I was talking about the phone booth scene with her daughter, Lorna. But it was really touching, and it was just, a glimpse into the human spirit of, like, how we really are all interconnected, and we have to be mindful how we treat people, not to just think that because they're on a platform and they have an audience or they're a celebrity, that negates their humanity. Like, they're still a person, they're still flesh and bone, they have to drink water like we do, so yeah, those are my thoughts about it, and I encourage you all to go see it. It was a great film. I'm definitely gonna buy it when it comes out and when it's available, and yeah, those are my thoughts about it, so I just wanted to, share that. Getting more comfortable, getting alive here now, filming more content. I know I said it last time after my Us review. Actually, I've saw a few movies since then, and I haven't done the reviews yet because 'cause I've just been busy with other stuff, but I wanna make it a priority to start doing these more because they're fun, and I just like to be able to unpack my thoughts and kind of just, like, disseminate how I feel about, just different facets of story that I just love to share. So that's all I want to talk about today. I feel like I was rambling. I didn't do too bad today. Only 28 minutes. That's not bad for a little live stream. So yeah, I just wanted to share that today. I was excited to hop on here for live, get more comfortable with it, and yeah, look forward to being able to do these more. So let me know in the comments what you think. Did you see the film? Did you like it? What were your takeaways from it? Kinda, like, share what you thought about it, and if you plan to see it, feel free to come back and comment below what you thought about it as well, and kind of, like, what you think about how we treat people that are, like, in the public eye, like, how we kind of have a tendency to, like, separate them because we're, I guess, separated by a computer screen or a phone screen, and so you kind of, I feel like we kinda get caught up in thinking that people aren't real anymore, like, they're just a celebrity, and people can say and do whatever they want, and they're not affected because they're somehow, some way not human, and then also in terms of, like, the creative capacity that people need to be able to protect themselves and have rights to their assets, that they can leverage and benefit their family and their legacy. And so, yeah, those are my two biggest things. Let me know what you think about that. How do you feel about that? If you yourself are a fellow creative, and if you've had thoughts about how to be more business savvy and protect yourself with your creative work, yeah. So let me know what you think. Yeah, it's about 30 minutes now. And since I don't think anyone joined me today, but that's okay. I'll start being more consistent here, and I'll have some more people hop in and have this be more conversation style. Um, Tomorrow, I do have an interview set up, my very first live stream podcast interview. A great, wonderful person that I've been able to connect with. And I'm going to post up some information on Instagram and Facebook, and then I'll do a little thing here on YouTube. But I want to just work out some stuff behind the scenes first with that before I get that ready. But that'll be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Friday. I'll have that up, and I'm excited about that because I'm getting my podcast and everything set up and ready to go. I have 2 episodes already recorded, and I'm just, like, getting emotions. I'm excited to just be able to get more content up and just be more interactive and, just more proactive and more just, in my flow, if you will. So, yeah, I will talk to you guys later, and, feel free to comment in the message in the comment section, and I'll just be replying as you guys, send me your thoughts. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye.